Sometimes the world looks at you and thinks it's seeing an ordinary life. Just another name on the list, just another person passing through. But beneath the surface, there's a current running through you that nobody else can tap into. You've been carrying a voltage that doesn't show up on their radar. While they're busy measuring you with tired yardsticks, something extraordinary is gathering in your spirit, building momentum where no one else sees. They came expecting a simple game, a contest of strength or cleverness, something they could control, like moving pieces on a board. They forgot that not all battles are fought with obvious weapons. You don't show your hand, because your source isn't found in the obvious. While they draw up their plans and plot the moves, you are living in a reality that can't be charted by their calculations. You're moving in the quiet slipstream between the visible and the unseen. When they try to push you down or back you into a corner, they're not prepared for what awakens inside you. It's not about fighting fire with fire, it's about the quiet eruption that happens in your soul, the turning of an inner tide. They mistake your silence for weakness, not knowing that silence is sometimes the sound before the breakthrough. While they measure power by noise and numbers, you move by resonance and calling. There's a kind of authority that doesn't require announcement or defense. The force working with you isn't loud. It simply makes space for what must happen. Others rely on show and spectacle, but you operate from a depth they can't reach. Their strategies break down not because they're weak, but because they're irrelevant in the atmosphere you bring. They're playing by yesterday's rules, and you're tuned to a frequency that rewrites the whole game. By the time they realize what's unfolding, it's already too late. The turning point never announces itself with fireworks. It arrives in the shift of the air, the rearrangement of things unseen. And the real twist is this: you weren't chosen to win by their standards. You were chosen to change the atmosphere entirely. Their biggest miscalculation is thinking they could predict the outcome. But you're here to remind everyone watching, there's no formula for what you carry. There's only awe for what's coming next. Not every conflict follows a script written in logic or human rules. What happens when the landscape itself shifts beneath the challenger's feet? Some step into a showdown believing they understand the boundaries, confident that every move is measured and every outcome is up for grabs. But when they attempt to impose limits on someone whose foundation isn't anchored in the visible, their blueprints unravel. They try to corner a storm, only to find themselves swallowed by winds they never anticipated. Calculations built on old maps don't chart these territories. Here, cause and effect dissolve into something unexplainable. Their methods lose their grip, their certainty is the first casualty, and uncertainty settles in their bones. As pressure builds, ordinary defenses prove useless against the kind of resilience that doesn't draw its strength from the physical. Every maneuver meant to destabilize ends up fueling something even more unwavering. Resistance transforms into momentum. The more relentless their effort, the more unmistakable the transformation on the other side. It's as if adversity is the sculptor, chipping away at everything unnecessary until only essence remains. Attempts to block the path result in new ways forward, cut through stone by persistence alone. Solutions spring from the ground like hidden wells, emerging just when all hope appears exhausted. What most call luck is simply the natural outpouring of walking in alignment with something beyond the ordinary. Events line up with a precision that statistics can't compute. A moment of uncertainty gives way to an unexpected answer, the right message or connection arriving as if summoned by intent alone. The improbable becomes routine, and the idea of randomness begins to lose meaning. Choices made with conviction trigger a domino effect, rearranging reality in ways no outsider could predict. It's not that chance is in play, it's that the rules have changed, and intention has rewritten the script. Nothing truly accidental ever finds a foothold here. Opportunities that appear out of thin air aren't the product of happenstance. They are the result of a narrative designed for elevation. There's a design at work that weaves order from what others see as chaos, guiding each step toward moments that feel both inevitable and impossible. Speech gains a different weight, shaping the direction of unfolding events. Words, rooted in certainty, become catalysts that direct the flow of everything in their orbit. This is where the extraordinary happens. Not because obstacles vanished, but because each challenge was repurposed into the architecture of breakthrough. Where others see endings, new beginnings assemble themselves out of discarded fragments. Movement here isn't about force, but about attunement, a quiet mastery that shifts the course of events by sheer alignment. Those witnessing from the sidelines may never grasp how the landscape keeps bending to the will of one who walks with something greater than themselves, but they cannot deny that the impossible has started to look like routine. There are lives that seem to function on an entirely different wavelength, as if reality itself recognizes their arrival and quietly shifts its rhythm. While others search for cause and effect, for answers in the physical and obvious, there's a hidden dialogue taking place between the unseen and your every step. This isn't about hidden power or secret knowledge. It's a silent signature that the universe itself honors. Paths curve out of the way of disaster. Harm, once certain, dissolves without a trace, and consequences meant for your downfall seem to evaporate in the sunlight before ever touching your life. Sometimes, circumstances that look tightly engineered against you unravel just before impact, leaving confusion in their wake. People with well-crafted intentions to unsettle your ground often find themselves tripping over invisible threads. Carefully orchestrated attempts to destabilize your journey inexplicably collapse. Obstacles dissolve, and those who set them up find themselves caught in their own miscalculations. It's not intuition alone guiding you. There's a rhythm of guidance humming just beneath conscious thought. Moments arrive where you know to pause, change course, or simply wait, and what seemed a threat fades like a mirage. Insights arrive not through deduction, but as sudden clarity, a map revealed just when you need it most. All the while, forces at play behind the scenes synchronize events in your favor, assembling new opportunities from the chaos. Movements meant to undermine you trigger their own undoing, like dominoes falling backwards. Reputations meant to discredit you lose their voice. Groups plotting in secret experience inexplicable confusion or discord. The machinery that operates against you simply jams. Events fall apart at critical junctures, and the energy aimed at you transforms into a tailwind for your own purpose. Even when your focus is lost in the mundane, that watchful presence carries on, aligning timing, rerouting danger, preserving your mission. Doubt and fear, when they surface, don't interrupt this current of protection. Even in moments of uncertainty, when confidence falters or trust feels thin, the unseen orchestration never misses a beat. Opposition, once unified and bold, begins to fracture from within, as tensions and hidden resentments emerge. Those who once appeared to share a purpose start to drift apart, losing their sense of direction and momentum. What was built to last against you starts to show cracks, and truths, patient and silent, rise where confusion tried to reign. In the end, attempts to construct narratives that work against you fall apart under their own weight, while your path remains remarkably preserved. It is not through force or resistance, but through alignment with something that cannot be counterfeited or blocked. No matter what is thrown in your direction, the story keeps bending in ways that favor your becoming, and the ground beneath you refuses to give way. Sometimes, a web spun from half-truths and diversions becomes so tangled that even its architects can't remember the original pattern. The more energy poured into keeping up appearances, the heavier the mask becomes. Efforts meant to silence a voice instead serve as a spotlight, carrying that voice into spaces never intended. Attempts to tarnish reputation leave those very critics exposed, their intentions illuminated in comparison. Every strategy devised to cut you off from connection instead draws unlikely supporters into your sphere, forming alliances in the least expected places. As the pressure of maintaining falsehoods mounts, composure gives way to internal unrest, and the sharp certainty that once guided their choices blurs into restless hesitation. The script that began with bravado closes in murmurs and shadows. A moment arrives when adversaries pause and confront an unsettling realization. Something far beyond their initial intentions has been set in motion. Their focus, once laser-sharp, is overtaken by a creeping sense of unpredictability. The ground they stood upon begins to tremble, not from your actions alone, but from the echo of a deeper order reasserting itself. What started as isolated inconveniences snowballs into irreversible collapse, each complication intertwining with the next. Fortresses built on half-truths and power plays lose cohesion, and the edges of their domain crumble quietly, leaving vulnerability exposed where confidence once lived. While most navigate the world by piecing together bits of information, Constructing reality step by cautious step, your insight arrives from a realm unbound by ordinary pathways. Guidance surfaces in ways logic cannot decode. Knowing lands in your awareness fully formed, bypassing the need for endless deliberation. Where others comb through facts and figures, you intuitively read beneath the surface, catching the tremors of intention and the subtle choreography of events before they unfold. What seems irrational to the outside observer is merely the visible tip of an invisible guidance system at work, a blueprint unfolding with each step you take. Your vantage point is shaped by a wider field. Patterns reveal themselves where others see only static. Encounters that appear random to many reveal meaning when seen through your lens. The instinct to move left instead of right, to pause when everything says to hurry, often becomes the very action that redefines the outcome. Unlikely solutions and opportunities emerge as if on cue, not through overanalysis but through the synchrony of your internal compass aligning with a greater design. Those who once questioned your path eventually find themselves tracing the echoes of your so-called unpredictability, trying to decipher the logic in your steps. Yet what drives you lies outside the formulas and scripts they know. Your wisdom comes from listening to the deeper current, and your victories are the natural consequence of moving in harmony with it. There are people whose decisions seem untethered from the evidence at hand, yet time after time, their timing is uncanny, their placement is precise, and outcomes unfold as if they've glimpsed the script in advance. A kind of resonance follows their words, not because they are loud, but because what's spoken rings with a note that can't be manufactured. Listeners find themselves remembering, rethinking, even shifting direction, not from persuasion, but from an inner certainty awakened by contact. What was once considered unworkable begins to materialize simply because their conviction carves a new possibility into the landscape. Attempts to overwhelm with noise or bury them in tangled reasoning break apart on contact, unable to dim their clarity or rattle their core. Trickery that undoes the brightest minds loses all power in the presence of genuine vision. Ideas designed to trap in endless loops disintegrate when confronted by a mind that isn't limited to the usual tracks. This knowing is neither deduction nor analysis. It's as if understanding arrives whole, bypassing the process entirely. While others struggle with fragments and symptoms, their awareness catches the original pulse, the heartbeat behind the appearance. Where others get caught trying to piece together scattered clues, they witness the entire mechanism at once, free from the constraints of step-by-step logic. A dividing line appeared, marking the time before and after a new consciousness took root. The catalyst may have been a sudden unraveling that stripped away every comforting half-truth. Or perhaps it was a long, slow accumulation of uncanny moments that defied any rational odds. Sometimes, it arrives as a single, breathtaking flash of clarity. Hints and echoes were always there, hazy impressions, sudden gut instincts that proved true, images and insights surfacing from nowhere. Dreams dropping insights far beyond reach of ordinary senses. Thoughts circling for days, impossible to brush aside, drawing you onward no matter what distractions were thrown in their path. Through it all, the line between randomness and purpose faded. A pattern emerges, not drawn by the hand of logic, but traced by a higher intuition, a path that leads onward, even when no map exists. Some individuals walk through life sensing hidden patterns pulsing beneath the surface, quietly tuned to a frequency most overlook. While the crowd accepts the familiar script, something inside quietly resists assimilation, pulling the focus beyond headlines and surface-level stories. Over time, the old filters begin to loosen. Ordinary sights take on unexpected vibrancy. Fleeting feelings sharpen into textures felt in the room. Subtle glances or passing words shimmer with layers of meaning. The world, once flat and predictable, starts to function like a living puzzle. Everything conspiring to speak in a private dialect, only decipherable through a heightened state of presence. Street corners and song fragments, random chatter and fleeting images, all become woven with clues meant only for your unique attention. The body itself responds to this internal shift. Deep within, dormant blueprints awaken, triggering changes science has yet to name. Circuits in the mind reroute themselves to handle new forms of input. Strength and stamina, once capped by expectation, begin to stretch into new territory. What once felt impossible physically or mentally, starts to bend as new thresholds emerge, revealing untapped capacity. It's natural, at first, for resistance to surge, a pushback from the identity built on predictable patterns. The mind clings to its boundaries, constructing intricate arguments for why it must stay small, safe, and contained. Familiarity becomes its own defense, spinning stories that justify delay. But the deeper rhythm eventually overrides the chatter. A current, ancient and patient, sweeps away the barricades, placing you in alignment with a trajectory too big to ignore. Every obstacle that once stood in the way is gradually swept aside, not by force, but by an invisible commitment to your full unfolding. Long before conscious recognition, something about your energy provoked a response in the world around you. Certain rooms grew tense, certain systems braced themselves, as if aware of a disruption yet to be named. Forces moved against you in ways designed to look like mere chance. Connections dissolved, paths narrowed, doors refused to open, all while maintaining the illusion of randomness. The aim was subtle isolation, a slow chipping away at self-trust. But beneath the surface, their unease was not about who you were then, but who you were destined to become. They tracked for anomalies, sensing a potential that hadn't yet surfaced. Patterns shifted, protocols activated, not to combat a current threat, but to hedge against what your presence might ignite. Every small resistance, every delay or detour, was a preemptive move against a future self still forming in shadow. What they feared was never your visible form, but the possibility coded deep within, the power to alter the system itself just by awakening. It's clear that those most threatened by genuine self-possession always attempt to neutralize it, often without realizing the depth of their own reaction. When an individual embodies unfiltered autonomy, those who depend on order and compliance sense an immediate disturbance, a signal that ripples outward, disturbing the status quo. There is an unspoken urgency to contain what might awaken sleeping potential in others. Hierarchies and power structures, no matter how sophisticated, are deeply unsettled by any force that stands immune to their influence. Attempts to silence or isolate the source of that freedom always follow the same script: quiet subversions, covert obstacles, or open opposition. Yet every restriction reveals more about the system's anxiety than the target's supposed threat. The more energy spent containing you, the clearer your significance becomes. Suppression is, paradoxically, proof of your impact. At the foundation of such resilience is a certainty that owes nothing to applause or attack. It is an assurance not sculpted by circumstance, but resting in a place untouched by opinion. Where many seek approval or shrink from judgment, this confidence is self-generated, impervious to shifting winds. Insults bounce away, unable to find purchase. Doubt, when cast, dissolves on contact with unwavering identity. In environments where pressure fractures fragile egos, the truly anchored only become more defined. Pressure clarifies, it doesn't crush. What might disassemble the sense of self in others only fortifies your own knowing, revealing a rare kind of endurance that refuses to fragment under scrutiny. Within, something ancient stirs and persists, unseen, inexhaustible, and undiminished by circumstances. This source is not subject to the ebb and flow of external support. It replenishes itself regardless of what surrounds it. It brings reassurance in moments of uncertainty, clarity in times of confusion, and transformation in the face of challenge. Speech born from this depth travels in ways ordinary words cannot, resonating on levels that logic alone can't access. Listeners, sometimes without knowing why, are moved or awakened, as if something inside them recognizes a lost memory being returned. What is spoken isn't only information, it's activation, reaching into hidden spaces and stirring seeds that were waiting for just such a call. This unwavering clarity comes from a sense of being chosen for something beyond self-interest or comfort, a sense that transcends the here and now. Its validation is neither new nor contingent on present success. It was imprinted long before present circumstances, written into the blueprint of being. Every turn of your journey, every reversal or triumph, confirms a purpose shaped by something immeasurably larger. The world's resistance only sharpens that awareness, each challenge further engraving the conviction that you are not here by accident. This kind of knowing cannot be borrowed or bestowed, it is lived, and through living, made undeniable. Some walk through existence grounded in a sense of self so deeply rooted that no external weather can erode it. Accolades land gently, not inflating their sense of worth, and criticism passes through without leaving a mark. The self is observed, feedback is weighed, and lessons are integrated, yet nothing fundamental shifts beneath the surface. The need to please or fit into shifting expectations evaporates. Social currents no longer determine direction. Neither neglect nor applause rewires their trajectory. Without hooks for manipulation to cling to, they move through praise and blame alike, choosing their next steps by inner conviction rather than consensus. Life unfolds according to a rhythm few can decipher, a rhythm that refuses to be rushed or delayed by passing moods or manufactured urgency. There's a strategic calm at play, a patience that seems impractical to outside eyes. While others act at the first provocation, here there's a willingness to observe, letting the full story reveal itself before committing to a move. The choice to wait is not born of fear or indecision, but of mastery, a knowing that revealing your hand too soon only narrows the field of vision. Those who attack prematurely exhaust their energy while exposing the architecture of their plans, granting you a vantage point unavailable to the impulsive. What seems like inaction is quiet preparation, and what appears to be retreat is only the gathering of strength. The moment to move arrives only when every variable aligns, allowing for a resolution that reaches root as well as branch. Your personal journey operates outside the schedules set by the world's clocks. Events land exactly where they're needed, not according to popular demand, but in alignment with a larger choreography. Opportunities arise in ways that could never be charted or calculated in advance. What feels impossibly delayed from a narrow view is revealed in hindsight as perfect sequence. What seemed to drag for ages now recognized as having turned in an instant. Help appears from unexpected quarters. Partnerships, resources, and inspiration arrive precisely when the moment calls. Even in isolation, you are never truly alone. A web of connections, visible and invisible, supports your progress, working tirelessly in the background, synchronizing assistance at every stage. Those who stand against you are left baffled by your resilience, as if you're drawing on reserves they cannot see, questioning how you keep advancing where others would collapse. Provision comes in forms logic would never expect, solutions emerging where there appeared to be only dead ends. What is required arrives through means unbound by arithmetic or economic predictions. Strength rises from emptiness. Possibilities multiply from what looked finite. Support flows in waves no forecast could predict, sustaining you in ways that defy linear explanation. There is a quiet certainty that the unseen networks supplying your needs operate according to principles outside conventional systems. What once hid in shadows eventually stands revealed, and what was maintained in secrecy finds nowhere left to hide when the light changes. Some stories resolve in a way no prediction could anticipate. Events that seemed disconnected converge with uncanny synchronicity, exposing what shadows tried to obscure. Truth isn't revealed through grand announcements, but in the subtle way puzzle pieces slip into place. Information once hidden in the margins finds its way to the surface through channels never expected. Testimony comes from the very places written off as lost. What was damaged is returned, not as a mere restoration, but expanded and deepened in ways no one foresaw. Friendships scarred by rumor are repaired through a trust far stronger than before. Blocked opportunities reappear in forms that command more influence, greater reach, and wider possibility. The patience exercised in silence becomes the very ground upon which vindication stands. The contrast between your consistent integrity and their desperate maneuvering becomes too stark to ignore, shifting perceptions even among those who once stood against you. There's no longer a need for explanation. Outcomes speak with a clarity that words never could. Those who opposed you become witnesses to their own undoing, and every justification collapses under the weight of revealed reality. Every conflict you endured was not merely a crucible, but the seedbed of your rise. What began as attempts to dismantle your position transformed, paradoxically, into the very instrument amplifying your reach. The efforts to confine you became the currents carrying your message farther than before. The trials that sought to diminish you instead built a platform that magnified your resilience and wisdom. Your journey through adversity became a living testament, impossible to counterfeit. People watched you weather the storm and saw not just endurance, but the emergence of new power. The struggle itself provided the raw materials for your elevation, crafting skills, character, and depth that no ease could provide. Through this fire, your role shifted, from a survivor of battles to the architect of new domains. Authority no longer came just from standing ground, but from cultivating space where others could also grow free. Every obstacle, when metabolized by perspective, turned into a cornerstone for the next expansion. The greater the campaign against you, the richer the resources now available for the next phase. In the end, their conflict was never simply with what they could see. They believed they faced a lone challenger, but soon found themselves up against a force that couldn't be boxed in or exhausted. Their early confidence dissolved as the true scale of their opposition emerged. Not a single will, but the resonance of something much larger moving through you. The more they pushed, the more obvious it became that they had underestimated what they'd provoked. Now, all that remains is the realization that their struggle was never with you alone, but with the source that sent you, and that battle they cannot win.